And if we don't have Hallie there, I suppose I can go ahead and get started here. We're about a few minutes in, and I'll just welcome everyone, and thanks for participating in this virtual event. If you couldn't make our in-person meetings, this is what this venue is here for. If you did attend some of our virtual in-person meetings, welcome again. This is a different environment for us all. And Allie, do we have your audio back on? Do you want to do a test?
We'll see if it's working any better.
Perfect. That's perfect.
It's good. It's one of those unplug and plug it in situations.
That will usually fix it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let me know if that happens again, and we'll troubleshoot again. Okay, before we jump into the presentation, we do have a number of language interpreters here to introduce as needed. If you haven't noticed, the captioning below at the bottom of the screen is in Spanish, but we also do have a Spanish interpreter. So Lourdes, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself in your language.
Thank you, Ali. Muchas gracias. Buenos días, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Lourdes McIntyre y estoy aquí para ofrecerles servicios de traducción del español al inglés. Todos los asistentes, excepto por los presentadores, están en silencio durante la reunión, por lo que a continuación les ofreceré unas instrucciones en caso de que deseen hacer comentarios. Por favor, limite sus comentarios a 3 minutos. Para indicar que desea hablar, por favor, levante la mano. Para levantar la mano, vaya hasta la barra de opciones inferior en la pantalla de video y haga clic en la opción que muestra una mano levantada. Si usted llama por medio de un número gratuito, presione *9 para levantar la mano. El personal le reactivará para hablar. Al final de sus comentarios, retorne a la barra de opciones en la pantalla de video y haga clic en la mano levantada para bajar la mano. De antemano, les agradecemos sus comentarios y que tengan una buena tarde. Thank you, Ali.
Thanks, Lourdes. Next, we have Hong Cao with Vietnamese Translation Services.
Hi, my name is Hương Cao. I work at H-GAC. Today, I'm here to provide the service of translation, Vietnamese translation. Xin chào, tôi là Hương Cao. Hôm nay tôi giúp để dịch thông dịch Vietnamese thông dịch ra tiếng Việt. Nếu quý vị cần thì xin hãy giơ tay có những cái dấu hiệu của raise hand và nói chuyện, tôi sẽ giúp đỡ nếu cần thiết. Xin cảm ơn. Thank you.
And we also have Sharon Ju with Mandarin Chinese.
Hi, thank you, Ali. Hi, my name is Sharon Ju. I work for Houston-Galveston Area Council. I will be your Mandarin Chinese translator. 大家好，我叫 Sharon， 我负责今天的中文翻译。如果你对今天会中的发言有问题的话呢，请按那举手键，我们会安排你发言，我会负责帮你翻译。谢谢 ，Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. And finally, we do have ASL translation services as well, provided by Deanna Griffin and Kenneth Nimitz. And the instructions to pin their videos are on this screen if you need those services. Okay, so once again, welcome. I'm Allie Isbell with the Houston-Galveston Area Council, and we're here today to talk to you all about the update of the 2045 Regional Transportation Plan. It's a long-range plan, so we're talking 20 plus years out into the future. This is where a lot of infrastructure projects begin. And we're currently in the visioning phase for the update. And the most helpful thing you can do to ensure that this is the best plan possible right now is to participate in our visioning survey, get your friends, family, neighbors, coworkers to participate in the survey if they're in the Houston region, because we're really striving to get a lot of input with that tool. And then with that, Mike, I'll turn it over to you, and we can begin with this question. Before Mike gets started, we'll start with this question to make sure that these meetings are the most helpful and that we're making them a useful tool to communicate with you all. So this is another QR code for you to scan. So if you don't mind getting your phone out, if you have a smartphone and scanning this, it'll ask you one question about how you think this meeting will go. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll have a follow-up question as well with the same method. And with that, I will turn it over to Mike Burns. He's a principal planner at H-GAC, and he's leading the effort to update the 2045 Regional Transportation Plan.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for participating. For this call, and like I mentioned at the very beginning of the meeting, if you've attended some of our in-person meetings that we've had around the 8-county region, thanks for participating there. And if you're attending today for the first time, thanks for participating in this venue. For each of the meetings, we've gone over a little bit of a very basic Transportation 101 discussion to explain what is an MPO, what is a regional transportation plan. Then we've shared some demographics about population and employment, and then the commuting characteristics that come from where folks have chosen to live and where they work, and then challenges that come as it can happen with that growing and aging infrastructure and population. Then we'll talk about transportation improvements to address challenges, and then we'll show you some tools of our public outreach strategy, which you guessed it, will focus on the visioning survey, and then we'll open it up for questions from you all, and we have various staff here that can address any concerns you might have about the direction of the needs and priorities for our region. So first, Transportation 101. What is the Houston-Galveston Area Council? Like every major metropolitan area in the country, our region has a Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO. The Houston-Galveston Area Council, or H-GAC, is composed of the 8 counties shown on this map, which is essentially Harris County and the surrounding 7 counties. And we have like I mentioned, we had our initial outreach in each of these 8 counties. What is the mission of H-GAC? I won't read all of these points to you, but just let you know that it's to essentially plan for the orderly growth of the region, build consensus on improving the region, and then developing policies and strategies for carrying out those improvements that were collectively agreed upon. And what is the Regional Transportation Plan? This is our tool that we use to establish the long-term vision for transportation in the region. It's a minimum 20-year outlook that we update every 4 years. Some of you may have participated in the update strategy 4 years ago. Some of you may participate in the strategy 4 years from now, but this is a reoccurring cycle that we use so that we can ensure that local vision, goals, and needs and priorities align with those of federal and state entities. And we do all this so that we can address the needs and priorities of our region in a physically constrained manner, meaning that the $100 billion that we have for funding to address needs and priorities for transportation in our region over the next 25 years are done so within that budget, that $100 billion budget. And oh, by the way, this is a required process to receive those funds. As far as the existing vision for the Regional Transportation Plan, here's what it is. The current vision was refined 4 years ago during the development of the original 2045 RTP. And I can say that this is not very succinct, and based on initial input from our Regional Transportation Plan Subcommittee here at H-GAC, this should be greatly condensed and aimed to provide a safe, resilient, equitable, and efficient multimodal transportation system. And we're here to ask you, what do you think about that? And the existing goals that we have to carry out that vision, again, they align with those same strategies of improving safety, the condition of the transportation system itself, moving all modes and users of a variety of abilities in an efficient manner, and in a manner that strengthens our region's economy, and also does so in a manner that protects and enhances our natural and cultural resources. So with that said, that is our Transportation 101 overview for you all. And I'm going to share with you now a video that kind of puts all this into a more exciting frame. So I'll start the video here.
The world is changing. How we work, how we commute, how we buy and trade goods, and how we visit with friends and family.
Our region is evolving, and how we approach transportation planning must evolve too. At the Houston-Galveston Area Council, we are planning for the region's next 20 years. We want to forge a new vision that prioritizes safety, convenience, accessibility, and sustainability for the Gulf Coast region.
A vision that drives opportunity wherever we live and however we move, connecting every part of our community now and in the future.
We need your help to bring this vision to life. Take our digital survey or attend a public meeting and help us connect the dots to make getting around the region safer and better for generations to come.
Visit h-gac.com/RTP to learn more, because life is better when we all work and thrive together.
All right, so there's the website that we would really love you to visit and explore, h-gac.com/RTP. Before we go into the tools that are on that website, let's go over some fun regional demographics. The 2020 census tells us that our region's household population is now about 7 million, which is a 20% increase from what it was 10 years ago after the 2010 census. And based on regional model projections, this total will grow to over 10.5 million, or essentially a 50% increase over the next approximate 25 years. Jobs are also supposed to grow. Regionally, the increase is 30% over the next 25 years, and this level of regional growth will cast challenges for state and local officials, especially for transportation planning and serving the needs of an aging population and an aging infrastructure. So where do people live and where do they work? At a granular level, using a 3-mile grid over our region, most of the population is, as you can see, located in the western part of our region and concentrated between I-10 and I-69, just inside of State Highway 99. This area of the region contains about 12% of our population, but only in an area of 2% of the region's area. By 2045, this trend doesn't appear to change much as the area's population grows pretty much in the same pattern along the western part of the region, with some additional growth in the Brazoria area, and mostly from Montgomery County around to the Fort Bend areas all along the western side there. When looking at total jobs within the region, the story is that a significant number of the jobs are about 20% are within Loop 610 currently. By 2045, most of the jobs are projected to continue to be inside the loop, with some growth in the western portion of the region inside of State Highway 99. The projected change in jobs also occurs along US 290, and some modest growth down on the southern part of the region in Brazoria along State Highway 288. So now that we know where folks live, where they work, what does the commuting patterns look like? Well, looking at the mode that they use for commuting, the story is generally that most drive alone from where they live to where they work. Pre-pandemic, looking at data from 2019, and we have some data from 2020, 80% of workers in the Houston-Galveston region drove alone. Mapping where employees live who drive alone shows that this is primarily in the eastern portion of the region outside of the Beltway, although there are pockets in the western portion of the region inside the Beltway. The graph on the left here shows that those who work primarily from home totaled only about less than 5% in 2019 pre-pandemic. Recent data in the region show that during the pandemic, the rate was somewhere between 30 and 40%. There isn't a lot of information yet on how this will impact commuting trends in the future, but it's easy to understand that if more of the region works from home, then the impact on work-related trips on the system may change. Other types of trips may change too. So this is an important factor in evaluating the impact of the system during traditional, especially during peak commuting times. Looking at the pre-pandemic data by county, there's really not a lot of variation between the counties. About 80% of those who live around in the different counties are still about 80% that drive alone, as shown there in blue. The outlying counties, particularly along East and Chambers and Liberty counties, are slightly higher, but again, it's still the uniform across the board at about 80% of those that drive alone to work. So what does that pattern look like? Here are the commute flows for 2020 on the left and forecasted for 2045 on the right, based on our population and employment data that we just shared with you. This is very similar to what was shared in the earlier slides. As I mentioned, most of the region's population lives in the western portion of the region, outside the Beltway, and then work, again, mostly on the western side of the region, inside the Beltway. This does not change much by 2045 as the growth is concentrated in the same areas. So where are the most significant changes? Well, the greatest increase in trips is outside of State Highway 99 in the northwestern area of the region, traveling to the energy corridor, also on the western side, along I-10. And the largest decrease in trips is from that same energy corridor along I-10 into downtown Houston. So there is some modification there in the trends. So what are the challenges that arise with this growth in population and our existing patterns? We're going to show you how H-GAC uses a performance-based and data-driven approach to identifying problems. The impacts of these essentially align with the region's ability to achieve our transportation goals and realize the vision for the future. We utilize required performance measures, which is standard for each region in the country, to track progress and identify needs that align with our region's goals. Again, the region's goals and performance measures address safety, systems condition, reliability, and the environment. Regarding safety, the region is behind on achieving the safety goal. Based on an array of safety performance measures, total fatalities and non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries are trending in the wrong direction. This chart on the left-hand side shows in 2020 that the number of fatalities was 737, and the most recent data from 2021 shows that total fatality number is now at 826, so definitely a trend in the wrong direction. And in response to that trend, H-GAC has initiated a safety task force and conducting region-wide studies that will require improvements with proven safety countermeasures to reduce risk and severity of crashes. Regarding congestion, overall, there are 5 performance measures for congestion. The region meets 4 of its 5 performance measures regarding delay and congestion. The targets are mostly been met. There are still some significant bottlenecks that you may be able to guess where they are along the West Loop. That experiences the most delay pretty much anywhere in the state. And then 10 of the worst top 20 segments of highway are within our region. Again, overall, congestion is not a problem for most users. However, the one user group that is affected by congestion is our freight stakeholders. This measure, like I mentioned, is currently not met. The portion of the highway network that have significant bottlenecks to the movement of goods is pretty similar to the total network. The West Loop still experiences the most delay regionally, 3rd most statewide, and 10 of the top 28 statewide bottlenecks for freight movement are located within our 8-county region. I should also note that the quality of pavement and bridges is also a challenge. The bridges on the national highway system generally achieve the performance, the measured proportion that are in good condition, that metric. The pavement of interstates and other roadways are not so good. And there are other measures that are available for your review on our website that I'll discuss towards the end of the presentation. Now, resiliency is another issue that's not really required for us to review just yet, but it is something that's important for our region for obvious reasons. Our region has explored this issue, beginning with the inventorying and quantifying of the problem and suggesting some best practices. Here are some, this matrix on the right-hand side is showing in blue some roadways that are not necessarily utilized a great extent, and then progressing to the right and to the orange is indicating that some roads are very vulnerable to storm water and flooding conditions after a storm event. The criticality along the on the left side of the matrix there shows in blue roads that may not have a lot of traffic, but as you progress up to the orange are very, very critical. They may be next to a hospital. They may need access for emergency management. There might be a fire station located along the corridor. The important color is the red there. Those are highly critical, highly vulnerable roadways. They're very important and very susceptible to storm events. And the map on the left-hand side there shows you where those areas are located, and the linear number mileage of those highways is 9.5 miles of highway that are susceptible to, or that are very important and susceptible to flooding events. 48 miles of major roadways that are highly critical and highly vulnerable. So with all that said, where are our current investments in the transportation infrastructure? For the region, the chart shows that, again, about $100 billion in investments are devoted to a variety of transportation projects over the next 25 years. And a significant portion of that funding, about 80% of the funding, is devoted for general roadway or transit. And that 80% of the funding is generally split evenly between transit and highway facilities. And it should be noted that much of the investment in transit, shown here in green, is for projects that are in the planning phase, meaning that's either a conceptual idea or a project that still has a lot of work to be done with the engineering before it can be funded in a funding program, indicated here in red, and definitely before it's advanced to construction, which are the projects shown here in orange. And right now, currently more roadway projects are at least under construction, funded, and then as far as the transit projects, most of those projects are still in the planning and design stage. So if you liked what you saw there, or you didn't like what you saw, how can you participate? Well, we have a number of tools that we've been using over the last month. The first was the old-fashioned in-person meetings, as I mentioned earlier. We started off with a meeting at the beginning of May in Fort Bend. We concluded this week with a meeting in Chambers County, and today is our final outreach event that we're doing virtually for those who could not participate in person. What we've been doing at those meetings is essentially showing you how to use the h-gac.com/RTP website. This website is what we use for public engagement and includes a visioning survey, a commenting map, again, some transportation 101 material that includes a lot of the mapping that I shared earlier. To discuss a little bit about the commenting map. This is a tool that we use very successfully during the pandemic. Instead of the old-fashioned rolling out plans on a table at a meeting site and then with markers marking up where areas of concern are located, these days you can do that virtually and use an interactive map. And these color-coded pens that essentially you can grab the red pen for safety or an orange pen for congestion and delay, drag it over to an area where you think there is a concern or an opportunity waiting to happen, drop it. You'll be prompted to provide a narrative of what the issue or opportunity would be, and then you can share that with H-GAC staff and the rest of the public. There are a variety of pens that are already populated on this interactive map, so if you don't want to drop a pen just yet, go and explore and see what other people are saying about the area where you live or where you work, and maybe that'll inspire you to drop a pen yourself. The other tool, as I mentioned, is this Transportation 101 story map. It does include a lot of interactive mapping. I showed you some two-dimensional images of the population as it is now and how we anticipate it projecting into 2045. If you want to do a deeper dive, you can just visit this story map and explore those interactive maps, look at the demographics, or even look at a variety of other existing transportation projects that we shared earlier and explore the project's descriptions for those projects. And this is all in an effort to have a plan approved by April 2023. As I mentioned earlier, we are at the visioning stage of this updating effort. The survey and the comment map will be collecting input for the rest of this month through the end of June. And then over the summer, we will be reviewing everything that we've heard during this visioning and needs assessment phase. And then coming back to the public later on this year in October to share what we've heard and maybe a strategic strategy for addressing the needs and priorities that were identified for this effort. And then you can let us know whether we actually heard it correctly or not. Following that process in October, we will be developing a draft plan again for a third round of meetings with you all to review the draft document. And again, all in an effort to have that draft document approved in April of 2023. So with all that said, again, this is our big priority here is to have as many folks within the region participate, get engaged, let us know what your needs and priorities are via this hgac.com/RTP website. Please scan the QR code here and take our visioning survey and then explore the sites and take a look at some of the interactive mapping. With all that said, we do take the balance of the meeting after these presentations to take public comments. And so I'll note that all attendees should still remain muted and wait to be recognized. We do have a little bit of a time limit, unofficial time limit of 3 minutes for each comment. I don't know if that will be an issue at all, but if you want to be recognized, please use the raise hand feature in the Zoom meeting. You can find this by going to the reactions tab there and toggling through to see the raised hand and click on that. And then you'll then be recognized and ask you to unmute and speak. And then we'll do our best to address your comment or your question. With that said, before you log off, we do have the QR code here that'll again take you to another survey to tell you they'll ask you how we did with this presentation, and just like the survey at the beginning of the meeting, we'll compare those and see if we did better or worse according to your expectations. So with all that said, I'll leave this slide up here so that you'll know, if you haven't committed it to memory just yet, what our website address is and the QR code there that'll prompt you to take the survey. And I do see a number of hands being raised. Greg, should I lean on you to recognize in order the hands that have been raised?
That might be easier on you. First, we have Mr. Harrison Humphreys. Go ahead. Are you there, Harrison? There you go.
This is Jan. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Great. Could we go back to the slide showing the projected commutes in the future? Yeah.
How about this?
Yeah, either of those really kind of work for my question. I guess I was just wondering, what are some of the assumptions that are going into kind of this model? Because I think in the past and currently, you're planning for the future and planning for what we anticipate commutes to look like has almost exclusively meant building out highways and building out highways farther and expanding highways, and that's kind of why we're the poster child for sprawl. And so I just kind of wanted to question and see where we're pulling these assumptions from, and if we're planning for the future, is that solely looking at commutes, or is it a broader vision?
I can initially say, and if there's anyone on our modeling team that does the works more closely with the forecasting methods than I do, please please chime in. But I will say that this is based on where we project where people live and the projection in job locations, and then using a lot of the there's a number of different resources that you can go to that folks have to submit for their employment. Of zip codes where they live and where they work. So that's where a lot of this derives from. For existing. For projected, we essentially just use those numbers and grow them based on some trends that our forecasting team develops. Now, this is a forecast. This isn't a standard of what is going to happen. So that there's a little bit of a caveat there, an asterisk to this. And frankly, kind of why we're here. If you don't like this commuting pattern, what don't you like about it? Or if you do, what do you like about it, and how can it be better? That's really the point of this event here, is to let us know that. But if there's anybody else on HGAC's team that can make a deeper dive into the explanation of forecasting, I'll look for that. Ali, do you see any staff that's has a hand raised at all? I don't know if I see them.
See staff with a hand raised.
Okay. If not, I hope that'll be fine, and just let you know that that's.
Yeah, and I can connect offline with y'all.
Yeah, you know, actually, if I could speak up for just a moment. Hello, everyone. This is Craig Rayborn. I'm the MPO director. And so Harrison, you know, the basic approach for that is, you know, we're looking, as Mike said, at the forecasted future population and the forecasted future jobs, and then the data that we have right now about commute patterns. So the thing to keep in mind is this is all commutes. It's not a modal specific kind of identification at all. It's just there will be this many people in this location, and there, you know, the data, if the trends follow, the data is that they'll be working in, you know, in the destination locations. And so it's just this map is sort of the combination of all of those future data trends.
Got it. Thank you. That's helpful.
But I mean, if you have more detailed questions, please feel free to reach out directly to, you know, to me or Mike or Ali, and we'll try to get specific answers if there's a specific question or issue.
For sure. And I do have a second question, but I'll hold it until everyone else gets a chance to go.
All right. Excuse me. Next, we have George.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. If you don't mind, can you go back a few slides to the demographics towards the beginning? This one, yeah, right there. The first population, the second one. But I'm sorry, go forward one slide on to the map. There you go. So there's some of these areas, some of these neighborhoods that are currently the least densely populated now in 2020, but will be in 2045 some of the fuchsia pinkish ones, so the highest density, showing massive concentrations of population in the next 25 years. Typically, the prioritization that the city of Houston uses, and I'm wondering for HGAC, is based on past trends. So instance data that's been collected over the last 5 years is used to prioritize future planning. And so I wonder what will be the prioritization algorithms that are used, and hoping that it's the future growth that is weighted in terms of those prioritizations to ensure that the areas that will be growing get the focus ahead of time rather than before it's too late.
So the question was the priorities and the assumptions on
Yeah.
that? Okay.
What are the priorities going to be? What are the formulations going to be? Have those been decided already?
I don't know if I can answer that.
Hey, this is Craig. This is Craig Rayborn again. I'll take a crack at that one as well. The short answer is no. That's why we're doing this survey, and that's why we're presenting this information now, so that we can have people provide input through the survey, as well as through just comments about what preferences are, so that we can then figure out how to go about identifying if there are any specific projects that aren't part of the current plan that we need to consider adding to the plan. Keep in mind, we're not starting from a blank slate. We update this plan every 4 years, and so we're really working from what we knew 4 years ago to now. And so the projects that will end up in the plan, most of the ones that are currently in the plan will continue in there, but that's, since we're really talking right now more about vision and values and expectations about like how the system should be working, knowing that, that you're identifying that question, that helps us. And trying to get further your opinion or preference further helps us. So just, note that as we're doing public comments, and if you have a preference or comment like that, please feel free to share that and provide that information, because that's really the point we're at in this process right now.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, this is David Gao with Travel Demand Modeling Group at H-GAC, and I'd like to add a word to on top of Craig's comment. Yeah, I think H-GAC has a land use forecasting group, so the employment and the household numbers for the future come from our travel demand land use model, and the land use model constantly update based on the most available information from county, city, different school district, and get their information about housing permit, development plan, all kind of information down the line from 5 year, 10 year, 15, 20 years. So we got the information from local entities, and the land use group used the information to forecast the future. So we consider the future development already. Yeah, that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Greg, do we have another question?
Excuse me. Alejandro has his hand raised. Go ahead, Alejandro.
Hi. My question wasn't necessarily pertaining to the population studies and everything that's been done. It's more in regards to the modes and projects that we've been working on. I've noticed in the past that there's always been a commuter rail discussed in some way, but it's never actually come to fruition. And I was kind of wondering if there was a particular reason why, or if H-GAC isn't even considering that as a mode.
We do have high capacity transit studies that have been completed. Allie, do you want to expand on where the state of that is right now?
Yes. So a few years ago, H-GAC formed a high capacity transit task force, and that resulted in a network that was included in an appendix of the last RTP update. And that identified some longer, like you say, commuter rail type routes, as well as to new locations, to locations that have been discussed in the past. And then we do have a couple of feasibility studies in our current Unified Planning Work Program, which outlines the types of projects that we'll be working on in the next couple of years.
There we go. Thank you for that. And I'll just note that you can explore projects on the interactive map, on the Transportation 101 story map. There are some of those high capacity transit projects within this map that you can click on and explore more on. We could also direct you to the high capacity transit website to take a look at that report and learn a little bit more about where the priority areas are for growing high capacity transit.
I just added the link to that report. It has a priority network identified at the bottom link of that website.
Exactly. And probably important to note, well, I guess Thomas Gray would be the best person to ask on this, but there are two types of network. One is a vision network that kind of gets to Alejandro's point of what is the aspirational system that would look best for this region or fit best within this region and be utilized by those who need to use it. And then there's the priority network, which is something that's actually more feasible financially and implementable more in the near term rather than in the longer term. So there's a difference, and it's important to kind of look at the differences between the two. But that is probably a recurring question I think we've gotten in a number of different places, is a need for those high capacity transit projects. It's just unfortunate a lot of them are in the planning stage right now, but are identified and in the pipeline for implementation.
All right.
Another hand.
Yes. Next is Marcus Tucker.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the presentation. Is there going to be a corresponding air quality conformity analysis adopted along with RTP, or are those adopted with the 4-year tips?
Well, both. The regional transportation plan, as soon as it's adopted by our Transportation Policy Council, fingers crossed, April 2023, that the conformity work will begin right about that same exact time. And that's due by August of 2023. Again, we're on a bit of a time schedule by updating this plan every 4 years. So that is something that is required to update air quality conformity with the package of recommendations that the region wants to advance within the life of that regional transportation plan. The air quality impacts are evaluated as part of that, and then compared with air quality budgets so that we can meet our conformity. So input right now on which projects you want definitely informs the package of improvements that, again, will go into that analysis of air quality improvements.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Harrison Humphreys again.
Thank you all again. Just wanted to say I'm really happy and pleased that we're talking a lot about resiliency and how we need to be planning for it. But I think y'all are probably gonna guess what I'm gonna say next. I do think we're stopping one step short of that in that direction. You know, I think we'd be doing the region a disservice if we planned for resiliency, but didn't at the same time acknowledge the connections between transportation infrastructure and climate change. So, you know, I think it's great that we're planning for all the storms that we're going to be anticipating, but again, I think it'd be short-sighted if we didn't also try to address the causes of our increasingly vulnerable region when it comes to natural disasters. So I think this is a great first step in trying to assess what's going to be vulnerable, but I do think the RTP needs to take on the issue of climate change and recognizing the connection between transportation and greenhouse gas emissions in our region and actively trying to plan to reduce those.
Thank you for the comment. Ali, do you want to expand on that at all, or Greg? Craig, do you want to elaborate on maybe what the new infrastructure law may say about that? If not, I could probably say that that's come up in a number of different arenas, the need to at least track greenhouse gas emissions as a performance measure. That's come up a number of different times. Not necessarily required just yet, but has been suggested.
I'll take a crack at touching on that a little bit. So yeah, I mean, a little bit of history for those who don't know is back in late 2016, the Federal Highway Administration, or I can't remember if it's Federal Highway Administration or USDOT, but the feds put out a a requirement for MPOs to report greenhouse gas emissions. And then late or mid 2017 or so, that was revoked. And so there isn't, as Mike noted, there is not currently a requirement to do that. We think that the new administration is working on one, and that will probably start coming through. So there will probably soon be an actual requirement to have MPOs at our regional level provide a report of greenhouse gas emissions from transportation activities in the MPO area. So that's probably on its way. As far as doing it optionally, submit the comment. It's something that we probably would need to discuss with internally, and then with our policy council and our TAC to consider how to approach that. And then as far as the infrastructure law goes, there are a number of new programs that certainly establish a good case for looking at all of the factors relating to climate change or resiliency, including a new carbon reduction program, and then the new PROTECT grant, which is an acronym that I cannot remember, but is essentially resiliency adaptation planning. And so that one is one as well that we anticipate the region trying to pursue. And then for the climate or the greenhouse gas the carbon reduction program, that's also one that should provide funds that are specifically intended for us to identify projects that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Essentially, that's what that's intended to do. And doing so will probably put us in a position for being accountable for at least the projects themselves and what they do. And I think a logical step or element to that would be to be able to describe projects and what we're doing, not just by the individual project level, but by the sort of the proportional impact on the region. So I hope that kind of addresses most of the comments you had, Harrison. But if you have specific recommendations or requests, please make sure to submit those in the survey. There is you may have already taken the survey, but there is a field in the survey to provide additional comments, and encourage everyone to do that as necessary. But also feel free to reach out and provide comments to any of the staff on the call today to try to address anything specific like that.
That's much appreciated. And just to kind of add on to that, I appreciate all that information, but also, I think we may have some TxDOT folks on the call as well. And I just want to say, I do think it's much of their responsibility to acknowledge this connection as well, and to take action on this. And being that so much of our region looks to TxDOT as a leader on transportation and transportation planning, I really encourage and hope that they take that on in a serious way and try to address it. And I'm looking forward to whatever materials that they release over the next year. But thanks, y'all.
Thank you for the comment.
All right, looks like Marcus Tucker may have another comment.
Yeah, can we get more information on the PROTECT grant? Is that going to be, is there going to be a call for projects from the MPO on that?
So the PROTECT grant has a couple different elements. One of them is funding that is sub-allocated to urbanized areas. And so this region will receive a certain amount of that, but the dollar amounts have not yet been identified. And then another element of that. So when that comes in, depending on exactly how the MPO and TxDOT reach agreement on the programming of those funds, we may do a new call that is specific for that funding source. We may just essentially add those funds so that we can get more projects that achieve that outcome or that sort of intended purpose. Get more of those that we've already identified funded. And then another way that the funds are going to the Protect grant or Protect funds will come out is through a grant process where where local agencies, although we as an MPO are going to strongly encourage a coordinated regional application for that when it comes time. We will, those are grants applications that will go to USDOT for selection, discretionary grant selection process by them. But we think applications from the region will be strongly encouraged. And when we do that, that'll be an open process that will run primarily through our technical advisory committee and the transportation policy committee, TPC. And
so is that a replacement or a along the lines of the Tiger grants or the
No, yeah, that's a good question. No, it's one of the new funding programs that were part of that were included in the new infrastructure law that passed last November.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I would expect to see the grant Protect soon. We know it's coming. If it's not already out, actually, there's so many. They're coming so quickly. I'm frankly, I'm not sure I'm keeping track of all of them at the moment, but I think that's probably one that we'll see. If not now, we'll see it very soon. We've certainly heard that Federal Highway is working on the. I had heard about a month ago that Federal Highway is working on the funding announcement.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the comment.
At this point, Mike, I'm not seeing any more raised hands. If there's anybody that could not find the raise hand feature, if you'd like to unmute and state your name and your comment, we would welcome that.
Yes, this is Jan Naidu from Revolt Battery in Houston, Texas. Wanted to find out if there are any plans for implementing or introducing battery electric buses in the Houston-Galveston area.
So the Transportation Policy Council, so that's the H-GAC's MPO policy board, just approved 2 months ago. In fact, it happened to be on Earth Day. Just approved about just under $30 million to Metro for purchase, at Metro's request, of course, a purchase of I don't remember the exact number of buses, but a combination of sort of regular buses as well as buses that are used for paratransit.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mike, at this point, I'm not seeing anybody else. I'm not hearing anybody else.
All right, well, thank you all for the comments and participating in the virtual event. Again, according to the schedule, let me zoom over to the schedule really quick and just let you know that we will be coming back to you later on in the fall, in October of this year, with a summary of what we think we heard. And then, like I mentioned earlier, a strategy for addressing your needs and priorities before we release a draft plan at the end of the year, beginning of 2023. Again, will need to be approved by the TPC in April of 2023. So if you haven't already done so, please visit the website, encourage others to participate if you feel strongly about a particular issue, and talk to other like-minded individuals, encourage their participation and involvement. Participation is the key in stages where we are right now at the very beginning. So thanks again for participating. And if there's nothing else, Greg, I think we can.
Well, Mike, we've got at least 2 more hands up, and then can you advance to the slide for the final closeout survey again? Before we get to the next questions, as people are thinking about dropping off, I just want to please again ask that you just complete this survey as well. Just letting us know how the meeting went. Do you feel like you had a chance to be heard? That's really what we're going for. We want to try to make these meetings as effective as possible and communicate as well as possible with folks. So this closeout survey is also really important to us. And with that, I'll let Greg go ahead and identify the folks who still.
All right. First, we have Tori Gaddis. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Troy Geddes. I'm with the Center for Opportunity Urbanism and the Houston Strategies blog. I was just wondering if there's an update on the Real Network Plan and if that is going to be integrated into this RTP.
I don't really have an update on it, but we can, I think we provided one a few months ago at our policy council. And I think that that's something, that's probably where that will go. Now, I think the inclusion of that in this plan, I think is going to be dependent on the timing of the completion of TxDOT's efforts on that real plan.
Okay, so it is, but it is still progressing and moving forward and being analyzed.
Yeah, I mean, TxDOT, the Houston district of TxDOT is working very diligently on that plan, and so once that's done, it probably won't be it won't be trickled down to the project level in our plan when we adopt it in the spring next year. But the elements of it, the concept of it, depending on where TxDOT is, as we get to the final drafting points of our plan, we may probably have some kind of a reference in that. It is going to still be a conceptual plan when it's completed, but that's really the decision point would happen. So I mean, I guess maybe not trying to avoid the question, but the reality is we may not, I don't know the answer right now, whether the timing will all fall into place, but there are a number of efforts underway across the region that may work their way into this plan or may, be completed outside of the cycle that lets them get in, and then we figure out how to start including those.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next we have, I believe it's Trinidad. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, my question, I just have a brief question on the Houston region. My brief question was, when does the transit agencies surrounding the Houston area will connect to the Houston metro area? Because I mean, I've seen some increase on some of the other transit agencies that are outside the Houston metro. So that was my question.
And I believe quickly, if there's no one here very fluent with the metro initiatives, I would say that it's very dependent on the local community, whether they want to be part of that metro district. That's where a lot of it comes from. I know we've had some sub-regional studies completed recently that we saw a need for expanded public transportation in areas that are outside of metro. So that's really kind of the next step, is identifying needs, maybe opportunities, and then forming implementation strategies. If they're outside of the district, how to get them included. If they want to remain outside, how to fund the system. This has come up in other venues as well. And again, it's very much up to the local community whether they want to participate in that district and contribute those fees to have that service in their area.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
To add on to that a little bit, we do have a regionally coordinated transportation plan, and that the purpose of that is for all these various transit providers in our 8-county region to, work together and come up with this coordinated plan. And we do also have a subcommittee that focuses on transit at H-GAC. So they discuss things like this frequently.
Very good. I didn't mean to speak over you, Ali. Sorry about that. Next, we have Alejandro.
Hi, follow up to Trino's question. So what I've noticed is that whenever I'm trying to go to various places around the region that are outside the metro service area, it is a pain to try to get anywhere. So with Fort Bend County Transit, they actually have a curb to curb type service that'll pick you up at the West Belfort Park and Ride. But if you're trying to go from Metro to Galveston using Island Connect and the Bay Area PR, there is a huge gap between those two services and you have to walk. That's one of the things that is a gigantic problem. There is no connectivity outside of the Metro Fort Bend County partnership. The other transit agencies and Metro aren't working together as well as they should. And that needs to change. And I don't know how that would even happen, how the coordination would work, but it's just something to take note of.
No, thank you for that comment. I think we heard the same thing when we visited the folks down in Galveston. I think they mentioned that same issue. So thanks for mentioning that in this venue.
All right, Mike, at this point, I'm not seeing any more hands, and certainly we would welcome anybody else.
I'm almost hesitant to start thanking people again.
It's all
Thank
good.
everyone for participating. Again, this is a process that's going to be open throughout the end of June. This video will be posted on the website that you've memorized by now, the h-gac.com/RTP. Website will get this video up there, so folks who couldn't participate in this event or the in-person meetings, they can visit that website and watch this video, participate in our survey, explore the commenting map or Transportation 101 story map. So thanks again for your time this afternoon. And for those that remain interested, we look forward to seeing you again in the fall with what we believe we've heard and get additional feedback from you. Thanks again. So well, I didn't see any hands come up during that, so I suppose we can go ahead and end the meeting now, Greg, and thank everybody for participating in this virtual event.
Thank you, everybody.